Concerning the concept of the Yuchud of Kriyashma of Baruch Shem, and in its context to what we're speaking about of Havayahu Elukim and so forth. Vain b'Likutei Torah b'dibur hamaskil shira shirim asher lishlomo. Look what it says in Likutei Torah shira shirim. V'sham perek aleph sheb'chnes yichud atah. The Baruch Shem is the lower concept of unity. Like we brought before, that there's das elyon and das tachton. The kel deos is higher than both of these ideas. But the das tachton is similar to the idea of yichud atah. So perhaps that's connected here. B'dibur hamaskil tzei nura eina durush harishon perek bezo b'dibur hamaskil b'chodesh hashlishi. It says Bnei Yisrael beretz Mitzrayim b'Torah parshas Yisro binyan anshe Yericho. So I'm not sure what the connection in tzei nura eina is, but in b'chodesh hashlishi in Torah or in Yisro, with the concept of anshe Yericho is that they were korchin es Shema. They would skip the pasuk Baruch Shem. That they would go without the Yichud Atah and go straight from Yichud Ilah because they were on a higher level. Anshe Yericho, the concept of Reach, Makiv, they were able to do that. And what's explained is Ki Shema Yisrael Zeu Yichud Ilah, that the pasuk Shema Yisrael is the higher unity. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Vod Zeu Yichud Atah, and Baruch Shem is the lower concept of unity. It says in the Maamar Shuva Yisrael that the higher unity is the concept of uniting the name Adonai into Shem Havaya. That the Shem Havaya would come first, and it would be Yud Aleph Kid Aleph Vav Nun Kiyud. And the lower unity is uniting Shem Havaya into Shem Adonai. So it would be Aleph Yud and so forth. And the beer there on this, that it brings from Mishnah's Chasidim, Vayin B'Siddur Shar Rosh Hashanah, Suf Dibur HaMaskil Adonai Sfasai Tiftach, Binyan Malchuyos Zichronos. V'Zichronos, look what it says in the Siddur, Rosh Hashanah Adonai Sfasai Tiftach, that it uses the beginning of the tefillah is that Adonai will open my mouth, my lips, and there it explains the idea of the kingships and the remembrances. That there it says that the concept of malchuyos is like uniting Havaya into Adonai, like we said, the lower unity. And the remembrances, this is like uniting Shem Adonai into Shem Havaya, the higher unity. We can say that we can say the meal of Friday night. That's called the meal of the holy apple orchard, the concept of the elevation of Malchus. That's like the lower unity, uniting Havaya into Shem Adonai with Sudasa Diyoma, and the day meal on Shabbos al derech shiluv Adonai beHavaya. That's like the higher unity of uniting Adonai into Havaya. And as it's known that it's a greater, higher level, that's why it's called Kiddush Rabbah, the great Kiddush. Inyan Bas Melech. Now the concept of the daughter of the king, Perish B'Tziyuni, Parshas Vayis Chanon. So I'm not sure why Bas Melech is being brought here, what its connection is, but at any rate, he brings from the Perish, the Kabbalistic Perish on the Chumash L'Tziyuni in Vayis Chanon, and he says that it's like Bas Haisel Avraham, that Avraham had a daughter, Ubakol Shma, and her name was and all. Ubakol, that Hashem blessed Avraham Bakol. That Avraham is the king, and his daughter is the daughter of the king. Efshar Lomar Yoser. We can say further, Al Derech Mashkaz B'Torah or Parshas Miketz Babir, like it says in Miketz, in the explanation, Al Pasuk Roni V'Simchi Drush Hasheni Binyan Pirush Bas Tzion. There it talks about the daughter of Zion. Shekasher Malchus Hibat Tzilus Nikras Tzion. That Malchus, when in Tzilus, it itself is called Tzion. And when it goes down into the lower worlds, Malchus is called the daughter of Tzion then. So that's like Bas Melech as well, perhaps. That, I guess, Malchus, as it descends down, the Bas Melech. I guess there's Malchus and Atzilus, and then there's, what he's implying is that Malchus, as it goes down, is perhaps called the Bas Melech. Mein Mashkos Munkasov Od Bilkuti Torah Bishir Ashirim Dibora Maskil Shchor Anivanova Babir Bishim Rava Magid Binyan Matroni Satatachu. Look what it says in the Kuti Torah Shir Ashirim in the Maamar that are in black and beautiful, when it explains what from the Magid of Mezrich with the concept of that there's this lower matron. I guess there's Matronisa Ilon, Matronisa Tata. There's which the lower matron is Malchus below, as opposed to Malchus above. Now we explained before in this Maamar that the supernal union is called eating, like the Tzikey Cdera that he brought before, the bishul of the in the pot. Like we said, the cooking in the pot is the Egyptians got cooked in the pot that they planned to cook us in. Allegorically, that's a concept of eating, and it's also a concept of supernal union. The cooking in the pot, that the pot is Malchus, and the meat in the pot is the masculine aspect. And the concept is, because Hashem's watching over us, the scrutinizing from above, that's called eating. Like it says in the Maamar about you should eat it today, about the man. The man is so Hashem watching over us and giving us our sustenance. That's Hashem watching over us to make sure we have all the food we need to eat. So our being able to eat is also the idea of Hashem watching over us in the particulars. Hashgacha. So if eating is the supernal union, and the hashgacha is union as well. It's also the concept of the union, which is the flow of knowledge. The man is also, the eating of the man it represents the preparation for receiving the knowledge of the Torah. That there should be, that the earth is filled with the knowledge of Hashem. So it's this supernal union, this hamshachas hadas, the eating and the hashgacha, and the union is all one idea. That I guess Hashem watches over us because we're His nation, and He gives us knowledge and sustenance. Kdera nikres Malchus, and the pot is Malchus. Sheba mispashal Michael, that's the kingship that the food is cooked in. That's why the lower level of unity, the Baruch Shem, is called the I guess the leftovers of the pot. It's called it's the food of the pot. It's called the Kdera. It's the Baruch Shem is. So I mean, if we're talking about the unions and the eating being the union, So the Tzike Kedera, the so to speak, daughter of the king. So I guess that's where the daughter of the king comes in. The Bas Melech, which is the concept of Malchus in the lower worlds, isn't getting the food itself, but it's getting the Tzike Kedera, that the pot is Malchus, and the lower level of unity is the, so to speak, what's left over in the pot. What's snuck out of the pot to give to the daughter of the king. Zehu yesh ubatel. That it's in existence, but it's still nullified. It's not comparable to the supernal union and the true nullification. And the concept of the daughter of the king, that's the lower level of unity. And this unity is called the leftovers of the pot. That's why the question is asked by Chazal, this daughter of the king, do you want to say that this is an embarrassment for her to request this, or to it's because it's not the higher level of unity, the regular eating of the pot, because it's only the lower level of unity, the nullification of the yesh, of the existence, not complete nullification of the mitzius. And that's the concept of kingship, of malchus. And from this you can understand the idea of the Pirush of the pasuk that it's the Kdera shebishlu, it's the pot that they cooked in, shem zadu, that they had intended. The Egyptians wanted to draw down the concept of eating, the union, to give a flow and a hashgacha chas v'shalom to the other side, b'chinas nukva de klippas noga, the feminine aspect of the klippa, even of klippas noga. Well, that's how you would get it. You can't give. You wouldn't want to give directly to the klippos, but through the klippas noga, which can go either way. As we're talking about, it's going down to the olmos biyah, and it's not talking about getting from the makif. That's why it says the meat in the field that's trampled you should not eat. It's referring to also there's a concept of eating on the other side. We don't want to have that. And that's why they were cooked in that itself. And from this we know that Hashem is greater than all the Elokim. Because his kingship is over all. That it's from the forest itself that I'm going to chop it down with the axe, with an axe. That this plot itself of the eating of drawing down hashgacha downwards, that it should go to them, and it didn't go to them. Instead, it went to Yisrael, and that itself caused their downfall. Kdera b'nefesh yishlomer. Okay, so that's in Elokus, that it corresponds with Malchus. Now, what about in the nefesh? What about in the soul? This idea of the pot, yishlomer hamoach. We can say that the pot is the brain, is the mind. That it uses this expression, the brain and everything in the pot. Rashi that what does Rashi says? What does it mean in the pot? That's the skull. The skull is the pot. That is the empty spot, in which you receive the flow of intellect. So if that's the pot, then what's the cooking of the meat in the pot? It's like the idea of all flesh will come and bow down. So to all the flesh, to the korban olah, is similar to the idea of the flesh bowing down to Hashem. So to the meat of the korban that goes upwards towards Hashem, the korbanos. B'mayim u'be'esh, with fire and water. Pirush Rabbeinu Zal, b'durush b'haloscha. So the Alter Rebbe explains in the Maamar b'haloscha, Tov Kuf Samach Gimel Pasuk V'Ashisiya Chadas, on the Megillas Esther, that the drinking was accordance with the knowledge. So it's it's Rashiziyah Hadas. So drinking is knowledge, the concept of das. So eating is the zivuk, is the union, is the flow of intellect. But drinking is the knowledge. Eish zewal derech rishbei eish ha'ahava, and the fire is like the flames of fire of love. V'mayim taimei ha'mitzvos, and the water is the reasons of the mitzvos. That satiates the desire and fire towards Hashem. And the fire heats the water. The love heats the reasons for the mitzvahs that you have. That you do them for these reasons. And so you have both the fire and the water, and this cooks the meat. For the meat itself, in this context, would then be the action of the mitzvah. That it should be digested and turn to blood, which is energy and heat, and liquid heat. And water also greatens all types of pleasure. So there's three different concepts in the water here he brought, one after the other. That it's das, that it's time in mitzvos, and that it's pleasure. And there's higher waters as well. What are the higher waters? That's the first pasuk of Shema. That the waters will gather into one place, meaning to say into the echad of Shema. Mind churin. So we can say that's the masculine waters. Baruch Shem b'vod malchus olam v'ad yesh lomar yehi rakia v'yehi mavdil humayim hatachtonim. We can say that pasuk Baruch Shem, that's the firmament that divides the higher waters from to the lower waters. Humayim hatachtonim d'mayim nukfin. That's the feminine waters from below. That's why it's called the leftovers in the pot. Because of b'kedusha, all of this is in holiness, concepts within holiness in the pot. B'kedera shebishlu. And so, what about the pot that they cooked in? What did they want to cook us in? What was the Egyptians or the other side's intention in cooking the pot? Zeu hamoach kishemali taivus. That's the brain when it's full of desires. Habishul be'esh zara, and the cooking in the fire, the strange fire of desires for other things. And waters of intent, of bad waters, of wanton flow, of wanton sins. That's that they had intended. Ubishul abasar, that's the Maim HaZedonim. The Zedonim is hinted to in the word Zadu. That the Nazid, it's not just Zadu from language of Kdera, it's also a Zadu from language of Maim HaZedonim. We're talking about the waters covering them as well. That they were cooked in that same waters. Ubishal Abasar Zeu Ubasar Yisod Duchura Bisade Nukfa the Klippa Zona, Trefa. And so what's the cooking? That's the meat of the masculine in the field. The field is the feminine. The meat in the field is the feminine, and the meat is the masculine. So the meat, but it's not just any meat field, it's the Sadeh Trefa, it's the field of the trampling field. The dangerous place where such a thing could happen, hints to the negative in the feminine concept. The zona, the prostitute, hanikra sadeh treifa, that's called the treif field, which is the same language used by rape, where it says, if he found her in the field and raped her. That's the place, that's the negative place of the feminine. refers to sin and so forth. Look what it talks about, this idea about these waters of bad intent. Look what it says about that mighty waters cannot extinguish the love. That those are waters that you have this negative waters that can't overcome. That's similar to the idea of Maim Hazidonim. Kinyan Nachal Hashitim, like the idea of the Nachal Hashitim that they drank from, and that caused them desires for to sin with the daughters of Moab and so forth. That it awakened, Chazal say that it awakened that kind of desire in them and caused them to sin. I guess in Parshas Ekev it mentions that in Zohar HaKadosh about Nachal Hashitim. In Zohar Shmos it brings the pasuk, praise it are you who sow upon all waters, that there are sweet waters and bitter waters. So what does it mean? Upon all waters you're going to sow, both waters, the sweet and the bitter, I guess. So this again, you have different kinds of waters. The cooking waters that are good and the cooking waters that are not good. Now in the service of Hashem, that we started to explain this idea that what's the pot? That's the skull. That's what's called the pot. And the waters, that's the brain within the skull, the water in the pot. Because the fundamental element of water is in the mind, as opposed to the fire which is in the heart. The fundamental element of fire. Therefore, if you unite the fire in the heart with the water in the brain, so you're cooking it in the pot. That's the cooking in the pot. So you have to have both of them in order to, so to speak, cook. And the proper service of Hashem, you want to, so to speak, cook a dish and to offer to Hashem like a korban. So you have to, so to speak, cook the water in the pot. Bring the fire of desire towards Hashem with your intellect and the mind, which is the water. So now another idea is you have this bread of wheat. Kaf Beis Asvan, Chita is Gematria Kaf Beis. You have 22 letters. The Reisa of the Torah. You have the concept of the meat. Meat and bread is the eating of the bread is the letters of the Torah. That's part of our service of Hashem. Is the holy letters, and saying them and so forth, and learning them, davening with them, and gazing at them. Look about this idea when it brings the Maamar on tzitzis. I guess with the idea of the letters of the Torah, perhaps, that are divided like the tzitzis strings. I'm not sure. Look what it says further about this idea that she smelled the leftovers in the pot. It says on the bottom, Sif Dalid. Because the Kriya Shema is called the smell. Al derech recha de levushaychu, like it says in Zohar HaKadosh, that the Yenuka said, I can tell Chamina berecha de levushaychu, I see with the smell of your garments. Yada shelo karau Kriya Shema, he knew that they did not read Kriya Shema because Kriya Shema is called reach. And I guess, like he brought before from Anshe Yirecho, that they were the ones who didn't say Baal Shem. They just said the first pasuk of Shema. He doesn't bring that here. V'zor Chel Gimel Balakuf Behei Vichu B'Yiras Havai. It says about Mashiach and Yeshaya that he will smell with the fear of Hashem. V'dugmas Ktoras, similar to the Ktoras Echad Asar Samimanim. There are 11 spices. I'm not sure exactly how the Ktoras is connected to Kriya Shema. Find Minyan Reach Bogdov. Look what it says about this smell of his iniquities, the concept of tshuva, that smells nicely when you do tshuva, the sins. Like it says about, I smell the smell of the field, of my son like the field. Reach Begadov, our sages said, Reach Bogdov, the smell of the iniquities of tshuva. Ach Baruch Shem, but that's the first part, like Kriya Shema, is the reach. But the smelling of the leftovers of the pot, that is Baruch Shem.